Tonight, you don't have to do anything impressive. You don't have to remember dates or hold on to names or stay awake out of politeness. You can simply be here, in whatever room you're listening from, letting the day loosen its grip a little at a time. If it helps, settle into the most comfortable position you can find. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the muscles around your eyes soften, as if they've been waiting all day to finally rest. And if you fall asleep halfway through, that's not a problem at all. That's the whole point. Do you remember the last time you truly breathed a sigh of relief? Not the quick, practical kind of breath you take between tasks, but the deep one, slow, unhurried, like a wave that comes in and finally reaches the shore. If you can, take one now. In and out. Gently. Arm as though your breath is lowering a lantern into calm water. Because tonight's story begins with water. Not the water in a glass beside your bed or the rain tapping a window. This is older water, an image from the world's earliest written imagination. A surface so still it feels like it was there before worry learned your name. A quiet sea before time, before cities, before even the idea of a clock. And somewhere near that sea, much later, but still unimaginably long ago, someone presses a reed into wet clay. A small, patient motion, a little wedge, a pause, another wedge, a rhythm, the kind of rhythm that doesn't demand your attention, only offers it, like a slow heartbeat you can lean on. Before we drift deeper into tonight's gentle journey, remember to subscribe to Ancient Sleep Story. Here, you'll always find peaceful stories that soothe the heart and quiet the mind. Where are you listening from tonight? Leave a comment. Your presence adds warmth to this quiet corner of the night. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. In the oldest cities of southern Mesopotamia, people did not carve their first thoughts into marble. They did not write on paper. They wrote on what they had, earth and water, mixed together, shaped by hand, and left to dry beneath the sun. Clay tablets, small, flat pieces of the riverbank, holding the earliest recorded words we know. Sometimes, after the writing was done, the tablet would be set out to dry where the sun could reach it. The surface would change slowly, glossy to matte, soft to firm. Or you can almost feel it in your imagination, the warmth on the skin of the clay, the way the edges hold their shape. Later, some tablets were baked in a kiln, and that extra heat turned them into something that could outlast a house, outlast a city, outlast the very hands that made them. And then the tablets would rest in storerooms that smelled of straw and dust, in temple archives where footsteps were careful, in private homes tucked into baskets beside everyday objects. They lay there like sleeping thoughts, quiet, stacked, waiting. Seasons came and went, water rose and fell. A child grew old and the tablet did not move. Even when walls crumbled and roofs sank, even when a city's name faded from living memory, the clay remained, holding its small wedges the way a riverbed holds the pattern of a current. If you think about it, and that is a comforting kind of endurance, not the sharp endurance of struggle, but the soft endurance of being held. And maybe that's why these stories reach us so well at night. They are not rushed, they are not trying to win, they simply exist, patient, grounded, steady, like a warm stone you could keep in your pocket. These tablets, some more than 4,000 years old, were first made for ordinary things, lists of grain, sheep, jars of oil, measures of barley. But over time, the same patient marks began to carry something quieter and larger, hymns, prayers, and the soft wonder of origin stories, questions about where everything came from and why the world feels the way it does. Tonight, we'll walk slowly into those questions, not to argue, not to chase sensational answers, and just to listen gently to what the clay seems to whisper when you hold it close, when you stop expecting it to shout. Imagine yourself far from the bright screen of modern life, far from the constant buzz of notifications. Imagine a warm evening wind moving through reeds along a canal. The air smells faintly of wet soil and sun-warmed mud brick. Somewhere in the distance, a boat slides through shallow water with a soft, repeating sound. Dip, pull, dip, pull. The sky is wide, fading from pale gold to deep blue. In that landscape, the day is not measured by meetings or emails. It is measured by the river's mood, by the season's shift, by how the light falls on the water. This is the kind of place where the first cities learned to breathe. Uruk, with its busy streets. Nippur, a sacred center where temples rose above the flat land. And Eridu, and often remembered as one of the oldest, resting near marshes and fresh water, a city that felt like it was built beside a quiet secret. But tonight, we won't rush through a catalogue of places. We'll choose a single anchor, the way you might choose one steady thought when you're trying to fall asleep. Eridu. Picture it now. Low houses of mud brick, their walls the color of baked honey. Narrow paths between them, a gentle haze where cooking fires once rose. Beyond the edge of the city, the marshlands begin. Green reeds, bright birds, and the slow mirror of water. The horizon is flat enough that the sky feels close, as if you could rest your hand on it. And in Eridu, there is a temple. It stands on a raised platform, not towering like a mountain, but steady, like a promise. The temple is called the Abzu, the house of the deep waters. Even the name sounds like a lullaby, Abzu. Abzu. Soft consonants floating on breath. The people of Eridu believed that beneath the earth there was a vast freshwater ocean, hidden and silent, feeding springs and wells. This subterranean deep was also called the Abzu, and in their stories, a wise god named Enki made his dwelling there, near the sweet water that sustains life, near the place where the world stays cool and quiet. In some tablets, Enki is not introduced with thunder or battle. He is introduced with stillness, with sleep, with the sense that wisdom can be so deep it doesn't need to announce itself. And that is one of the reasons these myths fit so well beside the edge of a bed. They are not about loud victory, they are about structure, about water, about the gentle work of keeping life going. If you were to walk into the temple courtyard at dusk, you might hear the soft movement of sandals on packed earth. You might smell incense, juniper or fragrant resins curling into the evening air. You might see storerooms along the walls where grain and fish and wool are kept, not as treasure, but as care for a community. And somewhere, in a quieter room, a scribe sits with a lump of wet clay. The clay is cool at first, then warming in the hands. It is pressed flat, smoothed, turned, smoothed again. The scribe's reed stylus has a cut tip shaped to make those small wedge marks. One press, one pause, one press. And the wet surface holds the impression like memory holds the shape of a day. This is how history becomes gentle, not with fireworks, but with repetition. If your mind is still carrying the weight of today, unfinished messages, plans, the pressure to be on, you can let that weight rest beside you for a while. You don't have to solve your life at midnight. You don't have to fix the past or organize the future. Tonight, we are traveling with something older than your calendar. We are traveling with a slow river and with clay that only asks you to be gentle. So allow the breath to lengthen, in, as if you're breathing in cool night air from an open window, out, as if you're fogging a mirror and watching it fade. Press, Pause. Press. Pause. Now, a simple pattern. Tonight, we will follow the feeling of those wedges. We'll let them guide us into the old Sumerian way of imagining the beginning, starting not with a roaring command, but with an endless sea called Namu. Namu is not described like a person you could meet on the street. To Namu is the primordial water itself, boundless and undivided, a vast calm that exists before the sky has a name. The kind of concept that, if you let it, can make your own worries feel smaller because it stretches your mind outward into something wide and quiet. And from that sea, the stories say, the first great divisions slowly appear. The sky above, the earth below, and the space of air in between, like a room finally opening enough for you to breathe. We'll take that breath together in a moment. But for now, let's stay with the clay tablet. Let's imagine that it has been drying in the sun all afternoon, growing firm, holding its tiny marks. The light is low now, the tablet is warm. And as it cools, it seems to invite you closer, as if it has one simple question it wants to ask you, softly and without pressure. What if the oldest stories were never meant to shock you, only to steady you? And what if, beneath all the loud interpretations that came much later, the truth is quieter, resting right here in earth and water, in the patient hand of a scribe, in the stillness under a wide Mesopotamian sky? In the next part, we'll step through that doorway and let Namu's calm sea carry us slowly toward the first breath of the world and the gentle temple waters of the Abzu. Let the room around you grow a little quieter now, as if the walls themselves are learning to listen. If your thoughts are still moving, if they're replaying a conversation, or rehearsing tomorrow, or circling something you can't quite name, there's no need to fight them. Just imagine setting them down, one by one, beside the riverbank. Let the water take what it can. Let the rest simply rest, in and out, slowly. Tonight we're stepping from the small warmth of the clay tablet into the vast, patient space behind it, the worldview that shaped those tiny wedges, and we're doing it the way the old stories prefer. Gently, with images that move like water. In the Sumerian imagination, the beginning of everything is not a bright explosion. It is not a loud command. It is an expanse, quiet, heavy with potential, called Namu. Try to picture it without strain. Not as a place you have to map, but as a feeling. A surface with no edge. A deep stillness where there is not yet above and below, not yet before and after. Just water, endless and calm, holding the world the way sleep holds your body, without asking questions. Some nights when you stare into the dark and your mind wants to spin stories, it helps to remember that the universe can begin in silence, that not everything important arrives with noise. Sometimes the most powerful things arrive the way drowsiness arrives, softly, steadily, without effort. Namu is that kind of beginning. And from Namu, the early texts suggest the first structures emerge like a slow breath opening space, the sky, and the earth, Kai. At first, they are not separate, they are close, pressed together, the way two closed hands touch. Then gradually, they part, so gradually that it feels less like a split and more like a loosening, as if the world itself inhales. Imagine it. A gentle widening, the creation of room. Not a violent tearing, but the simple act of making enough space for light, for wind, for life to move without panic. If you want, you can match your breath to it. In. The sky lifting out, the earth settling. And between them a calm air that becomes a kind of corridor for everything that will follow. There is something tender about that image, isn't there? The idea that the first miracle is not fire, but room. Room to breathe, room to grow, room to rest. If your day has felt cramped, crowded with responsibilities, crowded with expectations, let this older image remind you. The world was built with space in mind. You are allowed to have space too. Now, if we walk back down from that cosmic view, if we return to the human scale, we find ourselves again in southern Mesopotamia, where water is never far away. Rivers and canals braid through the land. The soil is dark and fertile. Reeds whisper, birds call and then fade into the distance. And people, ordinary people, live by the rhythm of irrigation and harvest. A boat glides along a canal carrying baskets and clay jars. The oar dips in and lifts out with a sound so soft it almost becomes part of your breathing. Dip, lift, dip, lift. Somewhere near the canal, a scribe's workspace waits. It might be a small room off a temple courtyard, shaded from the harshest sun, or it might be in a household, near a doorway where light can reach the tablet. Either way, the scene is calm. There is no urgency. The work is steady. The scribe wets the clay just enough to make it receptive. The reed stylus rests between fingers, familiar as a spoon. The first marks are simple, practical, a measure of grain, a number, a name. But tonight, our scribe is copying something different, something that has been recited for generations, now being pressed into clay so it can sleep safely through time. A story of beginnings. And you can imagine the scribe pausing between lines, listening inwardly to the cadence of the myth. Outside, the world keeps moving, footsteps, distant voices, wind in reeds. Inside, the tablet receives each wedge like a slow heartbeat. And here is a quiet detail that matters. Those wedge marks are not meant to be rushed. Cuneiform asks for patience. Each sign is built from small presses. Each press is a tiny moment of contact. If you were to watch a skilled scribe, you might notice the pauses as much as the motion, the micro rests between impressions. It's a reminder that even in work, there can be rest. In the Sumerian stories, after sky and earth open space between them, the world becomes livable. Fresh water finds paths. Marshes spread. Fields drink and green. People gather in places where the land is generous, where a canal can be coaxed into feeding a garden. Eridu, our anchor city, sits near those marshes like a quiet thought at the edge of the mind. And in Eridu stands the temple of the Abzu, the house of deep waters. If you walk toward it at evening, the air cools, shadows lengthen, the sky turns to indigo. A few lamps glow inside doorways, small circles of amber. You hear the gentle hush of water somewhere close, maybe a channel, maybe a pool. The temple's platform rises above the flat land, not to dominate, but to keep the sacred space dry when the waters come. Because in Mesopotamia, water is both giver and taker. It brings life through irrigation, and it can also flood the fields if the season turns heavy. This is why the old stories speak of water with reverence. Water is the first substance and the ongoing lesson. Everything flows, as everything changes, and yet the flow itself can be steady. Inside the temple complex there might be a basin, a ritual pool, or simply a symbolic space where the Abzu is remembered. And in the mythic imagination, this is where Enki dwells. Enki, lord of sweet water, keeper of wisdom, a presence associated not with rage, but with cleverness, craft, and calm problem-solving. Some later tellings speak of Enki as someone who knows how to soften hard situations. Someone who finds a way when others want to force. Someone who prefers a quiet solution to a loud conflict. If you've had to be strong all day, if you've had to push and insist and hold your ground, this is a different kind of strength. Strength that bends like reeds in the wind. and does not break. And as the scribe works, night arrives the way it always has, quietly. Above the flat land, the sky grows darker and the first stars appear. They don't rush. They simply return, one point of light, then another, until the whole dome seems dusted with silver. In a place like Eridu, with so much open horizon, the night sky would feel enormous, wide enough to hold every worry without even noticing the weight. Sometimes families climb to their rooftops to catch cooler air. You can imagine the low murmur of voices, a child's sleepy questions, the soft clink of a clay cup. Someone points toward a bright star, tracing an invisible line. Not to prove anything, just to share the comfort of looking up together. If tonight's story reminds you of a beautiful memory, of a summer night, a porch light, a quiet road, a sky that made you feel small in the best way, feel free to share it below when you're ready. A gentle comment can be a small kindness to yourself. And if you can't think of a memory right now, that's okay. The old sky will still be there. The river will still move. The deep water beneath the earth will still hum its calm, steady note, inviting you to rest gently. And here, gently, we come to a soft discovery that will carry us forward through the night. In these earliest myths, the famous Anunnaki are not framed as sensational visitors. They are, more often, a collective of divine figures associated with decisions, order, and the shared architecture of the world. Not an interruption, but a structure. Not a sudden invasion, but a way the ancient mind explained why life has patterns, why seasons return, why law matters, why promises hold. It's less dramatic than modern myths make it, and that is a relief. Because relief is what we're looking for tonight, a story that steadies rather than shocks. So picture the world of the Sumerians like a calm house at night. The roof is the sky, the floor is the earth, the deep, hidden water beneath is the Abzu, cool, patient, sustaining. And somewhere in that house a gentle wisdom sleeps, waiting to be remembered. If you want, take another slow breath in, as if you're drawing cool water up from a deep well, out, as if you're letting it settle, smooth and still. Now, as we continue our journey, we will drift from the cosmic ocean into something almost intimate, a list. Not a list like a grocery list, though the Sumerians wrote plenty of those too, but a list of kings recorded on tablets, stretching backward into an age so distant it becomes dreamlike. And names followed by lengths of reign so long that the numbers stop feeling like math and start feeling like a horizon. 28,000 years, 36,000 years, time measured in immensities. We won't stare at the numbers too hard. We'll let them blur the way lights blur when your eyes grow sleepy. Because the point is not precision. The point is the feeling they create. Your worries shrinking, your mind widening, your body remembering that it doesn't have to carry the whole world. And somewhere beyond those long reigns, beyond the deep water and the temple's quiet lamps, there is a faint, gentle thread of curiosity waiting for us, like a pale glow under a closed door. A question the clay seems to hum without words. What happens when the world's calm order is tested, and the only safe place left is inside a small, warm shelter, surrounded by the steady sound of rain? We'll follow that hum next, the way you might follow a lullaby deeper into sleep, without hurry, without fear, just one soft step at a time. Stay as you are, comfortably. If your eyes are open, you can let them soften, unfocused, like you're looking at the surface of a dark lake. If they are closed, you can allow the darkness behind your eyelids to feel gentle and safe, as if it were a warm blanket settling over the day. Somewhere in that darkness, imagine a small room lit by a single oil lamp. The flame is steady, not dancing wildly, just a quiet amber glow that turns clay and skin into soft gold. A scribe sits cross-legged with a tablet on his knees, and the reed stylus rests between his fingers like a familiar tool worn smooth by use. Outside, night air cools the courtyards. Water murmurs in a canal. Reeds whisper, then go still. A dog sighs in its sleep. The world feels simple. And on the tablet, the scribe begins to write a list. Not because lists are exciting, but because lists are calming. A list has order. It has edges. It tells the mind, here is the shape of things. Even today, when life feels scattered, we make lists to soothe ourselves, small anchors against the drift. The Sumerians did the same, only their lists sometimes reached far beyond the scale of one human life. Before the scribe writes, he prepares the clay. He takes a lump of river earth, already cleaned of stones, and wets it until it becomes pliable, cool, and quietly alive in his hands. He presses it flat, smooths it, turns it, smooths it again. The surface becomes a small, pale plane, ready to receive meaning. Then the reed tip touches down. One press, a tiny wedge appears, a pause. The hand lifts. Another press, another wedge, another pause. The clay holds everything patiently. If your thoughts have been moving too fast tonight, you can borrow that rhythm. Press, pause, press, pause, as if you're gently tapping the day into silence. The text the scribe is copying is something we now call the Sumerian king list, a document that was copied and recopied across centuries. In it, kingship is described as something that descended from heaven, not in a loud, sensational way, but in a dignified one, like a quiet principle settling into the world, the way sunrise settles onto a river. And then come the names. The first names belong to an age before a great flood, an age so distant it becomes almost dreamlike. One the list records reigns that last, not for decades, but for thousands upon thousands of years. Try not to grip the numbers. Let them be like distant hills in fog. You don't need to calculate. You only need to feel what the old scribes may have felt. An immense stretch of time so wide that ordinary worries lose their sharpness. One king is said to rule for 28,800 years, another for 36,000 years. The figures repeat like waves, long, slow, and strangely soothing, a number so large it stops being a number and becomes a landscape. And in that landscape, the mind relaxes, because so much of modern stress is the feeling of being chased by time, by expectations, by unfinished tasks. But here, time is not chasing. Time is simply there, vast and slow like a river at night. If your mind has been living in tight spaces, deadlines, schedules by tonight, by tomorrow, this is the opposite. This is time expanded until it becomes gentle. Time that does not demand your speed. Imagine the scribe pausing after a long rain, letting the fresh wedge marks settle as he breathes. The lamp crackles softly. A faint scent of oil and clay rises. He shifts his weight, not in irritation, but in comfort. He presses another sign, another pause. The list continues, and while you listen, you might notice something quiet inside yourself. Your own body understands long rhythms. Your heart has been beating all day without asking permission. Your lungs have been breathing without needing applause. You too are made of steady cycles. Even if your thoughts feel messy, your body has been faithful. So, if it helps, let your shoulders drop again. Let the tongue rest away from the roof of the mouth. Let the forehead smooth. These are small human permissions, tiny releases that tell the nervous system we are safe now. In the mythic memory of Mesopotamia, those ancient kings are not described with dramatic speeches. They are more like markers on a shoreline. Here, the world was this old. Here, it was older. Here, it was older still. Their names are less important than the feeling. Human life sits inside a much larger river of time. And then, in the list, comes a simple line, almost startling in its simplicity. Then the flood swept over, not as a cinematic catastrophe, not with screaming. The text does not linger on terror. It states the event and moves on like a tide that rises and falls and leaves the shore changed, in the way of ancient documents, and it continues forward, as if the earth itself is familiar with cycles of loss and renewal. This is a useful way to hold storms as cycles, not punishments. Water rises, water recedes, people rebuild, life returns. If you are a person who carries fear at night, fear of what you can't control, fear of the next problem, let the ancient rhythm offer you something steadier. Even in old stories, the world does not end. It changes, and then it steadies again. Now we return softly to Eridu, our quiet anchor. Eridu sits near marshes and sweet water. It is the kind of place where people understand that water is a neighbor. They build with it in mind, they listen to it, they respect it. Their walls are made of mud brick, earth shaped into shelter, and their rooftops catch the night breeze. In the distance, frogs sing in slow intervals. In the reeds, something rustles and then settles. And in Eridu stands the temple of the Abzu, the house of deep waters. If you walk toward it at evening, the air cools. Shadows lengthen, the sky turns to indigo. A few lamps glow inside doorways, small circles of amber. You hear the gentle hush of water somewhere close. Maybe a channel, maybe a pool, maybe the whisper of a well. The temple's platform rises above the flat land, not to dominate, but to keep the sacred space dry when the waters come, because in Mesopotamia, water is both giver and taker. It brings life through irrigation, and it can also flood the fields when the season turns heavy. That is why the old stories speak of water with reverence. Water is the first substance and the ongoing lesson. Everything flows, everything changes, and yet the flow itself can be steady. In some tellings, Enki dwells in the Abzu, deep under the earth where sweet water rests. Wisdom resting under the world. A mind as cool as spring water. Sometimes he is described as sleeping there, sleeping not as ignorance but as deep stillness, like a stone at the bottom of a clear pool. If you want, you can borrow that image now. Imagine a calm, cool water beneath everything, the part of you untouched by the day's noise. The part that exists even when your thoughts are busy. It is there, quietly, like a hidden well, in and out, gently. Now, because we are moving toward the flood story, let's keep the tone safe. Tonight we don't chase fear. We hold it at a distance, like thunder that stays far beyond the horizon while the room you're in remains warm. So picture the flood not as panic, but as weather, a long rain, steady, persistent. The sound of water on roofs and reeds, the canal swelling slowly, the river edging outward, patient and powerful. Not angry, simply full. In the first hours, it is almost soothing, the way rain turns dust to dark earth, the way it smooths footprints, the way it gathers in shallow bowls and makes tiny mirrors. In the second day, it becomes a constant sound, like a drum played very softly. By the third, the world smells entirely of wet clay and fresh water, and the horizon blurs into a silver haze, and within that weather, a small shelter. In the Mesopotamian tradition, there is a figure sometimes called Ziusudra, sometimes remembered through later names in other languages, always the same gentle archetype, a person who listens, who prepares, who keeps life safe inside a boat. We can imagine him as someone ordinary, not a hero shouting commands, but a person moving carefully through a dim house, gathering what matters, not in a frenzy, just with calm attention. He lays his palm on a plank of wood and feels the grain. He rolls a rope in his hands, noticing the coarse fibers and the faint smell of river reeds. He checks the wooden pegs, he tightens a knot. Each motion is small and practical, and that practicality is soothing. Because practical movements have a way of calming the mind. This, then this, then this. You can almost hear the sounds, a rope sliding through hands, the soft creak of wood, the quiet tap of a peg being set. No shouting, no drama, just the steady work of making an inside. Outside, the rain thickens. The world turns glossy. The air cools. Water gathers at the base of walls. A few lamps flicker behind shutters. And inside the shelter, inside the boat, inside the small circle of warmth, there is a different sound, breathing, quiet and close. If you have ever listened to rain from a safe bed, you know the feeling. The outside world becomes a soft curtain. The inside becomes a nest. The mind loosens. The body says, "Here is safety." That is the heart of this ancient flood story when told gently. Not destruction, but refuge. Not terror, but the discovery that there is always an inside, a place where life can rest while the weather passes. And notice how kind that idea is, because if your own life has felt like weather lately, busy, heavy, uncertain, then perhaps the most important task is not to control the storm. Perhaps it is to build the inside, a small space of calm, a ritual, a breath, a quiet story at night, a lamp on a bedside table, or a moment when you let yourself be held. If this story has brought you calm so far, leave a gentle comment for yourself when you're ready. It can be as simple as, "I'm here, I'm safe, I'm allowed to rest." And now our soft curiosity grows brighter, but still gentle, like a lamp turned slightly higher. What was it like, in those old stories, to be inside the boat for 7 days and 7 nights, listening to rain that never changes its tempo, feeling the world rock softly, like a cradle? And what happens after, when the rain thins and the water lowers, and the first clean air returns? Quiet as a blessing. We'll drift into that shelter together in the next part, letting the rain become a kind of white noise and letting the ancient boat carry you further from the day, deeper into rest. Let's return to the sound we left waiting at the edge of the story. Rain. Not the sharp, sudden rain that startles you awake, but the steady kind, the kind that arrives like a curtain and stays, softening every corner of the world. If you can hear anything in your room right now, a fan, distant traffic, the small hum of electricity, let it become part of that rain. Let it be the same gentle, unbroken rhythm telling your body it can stop listening for danger. In the old Mesopotamian flood stories, the outside world changes shape. Water rises, the horizon blurs, and the familiar lines between land and river dissolve into one wide, moving surface. But the story's most soothing detail is not the water itself. It is the inside, a small, warm space of wood and rope and breath, held together by careful hands and quiet intention. A place where life can wait while weather passes. Imagine stepping into that boat now as if you're stepping into a sheltered room. The doorway is low. You duck your head and the air inside feels different. Still, close, a little warmer than the damp night outside. The boards beneath your feet are firm, slightly rough, smelling faintly of resin and river mud. Somewhere a rope creaks softly as the boat shifts on the water, not violently, but in a slow rocking that almost resembles a cradle. You might notice, too, the way the builders protected the boat from the patient work of water. Along the seams there is a dark, tar-like substance, bitumen gathered from seeps, warmed until it could be spread. It smells earthy and sweet, like stone after rain. When it cools, it becomes firm, sealing gaps the way a good night's rest seals the small cracks the day leaves in you. In Mesopotamia, people knew boats the way they knew bread, not as luxury, but as daily necessity. Reeds could be bundled and bound into light craft for marsh channels. Wood could be shaped into sturdier hulls for wider water. Rope, twisted from plant fiber, could brace what needed holding. Even the simplest vessel was a lesson in trust. Trust that the water would carry you, trust that the craft would hold, trust that your own hands could build an inside where you could breathe. And now, standing within this mythic shelter, you can let that ancient knowledge become personal. Whatever your day looked like, you have made it here. You have built your own small boat tonight. Your pillow, your blanket, your quiet corner. This story, you did not have to do it perfectly. You only had to do it gently. Outside, the rain continues, a gentle tapping, countless tiny drops, each one too small to matter on its own, but together, forming a sound so consistent, it becomes a kind of lullaby. Tap, 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 tap. If your mind is restless, you can rest it on that pattern. You don't have to chase your thoughts. You can let them drift, like floating reeds on the surface, while the rain keeps time. In the tradition, the boat carries more than one person. It carries the idea of continuity, the sense that life can be protected, that something tender can survive, that tomorrow can exist even when today feels flooded. And notice how gentle that is as a message, because many of us, especially in busy modern lives, carry a private fear that if we stop working, everything will collapse. If we close our eyes, something will go wrong. If we rest, we will lose control. But here, inside the ancient boat, the opposite is true. Rest is part of survival. Stillness is not laziness. It is the way life waits wisely. You can let your breathing become slower now, matching the boat's rocking. In, like the boat rising slightly on a swell. Out, like the boat settling back, safe and steady. 7 days and 7 nights, some versions say. And even if you don't hold tightly to that number, you can let the phrase repeat the way rain repeats. 7 days and 7 nights. 7 days and 7 nights. A small line of words that creates a soft corridor for the mind to walk down. Inside, there are quiet tasks. Someone checks a knot and finds it still firm. Someone adjusts a blanket. Someone offers a sip of water from a clay cup. A child asks a sleepy question and is answered with a whisper. A lamp is shielded from draught so its flame stays calm. There is no grand speech, no dramatic hero posture, only the ordinary tenderness of people taking care of one another in the dark. If you've ever sat awake at night with someone you love, keeping the room quiet so they can sleep, you know this kind of gentleness. It's a care you can feel in your chest, warm and heavy, like a hand resting there. Outside the boat, the world becomes all water. The river and the fields and the canals merge into one wide surface, and the rain makes it shimmer as if the sky is quietly stitching silver threads into the dark. But inside the boat there is a boundary, not a harsh boundary, but a soft one, the same kind of boundary your bed creates for you. The sheet, the blanket, the wall of your room. These are gentle edges that tell your nervous system, this is inside, this is safe. If tonight you've been carrying too much, imagine placing that weight on the floorboards of the boat. Just set it down. Let the wood hold it for a while. Let the rain handle the rest. Now there is another small, calming detail in the Mesopotamian imagination. The flood is not endless. It has a rhythm. It comes, it stays, it passes. Even in myth, water eventually finds its level. So we let time move the way it moves in the boat, slow, repetitive, almost dreamy. Night becomes morning without sharpness. The light outside shifts from deep blue to grey, then to a pale, watery gold. The rain is still there, but it changes texture, sometimes fine as mist, sometimes heavier for a while, then fine again. The boat rocks, the rope creaks, the air smells clean, washed. Then evening returns. The sky darkens again. Another night arrives, and through it all, the inside remains. There is something deeply comforting about the thought that survival is not always a battle. Sometimes it is simply endurance, quiet and patient. Sometimes it is lying still while the storm spends itself. Sometimes it is letting the world be loud while you remain soft. In later traditions, other cultures would retell this flood, changing names, changing details, shaping the story to new ears. But tonight, we don't need the debate of versions. We only need the gentle core that stays the same, a shelter, a steady rain, a period of waiting, and the promise of calm afterward. Now, if you want to add a small ritual to this moment, you can imagine that each exhale is a drop of rain leaving the roof. Each inhale is the warm air inside the boat returning to you. In, safe air. Out, rain fading away. Now let's bring the story's quiet wisdom closer to your own life. Think of the Abzu again, the deep, sweet water beneath the earth, the hidden stillness beneath everything. The flood is loud water. The Abzu is quiet water. In the Sumerian world, both exist at once. The surface can churn while the deep remains calm. And you are like that too. Your thoughts can be like rain, many, many drops. Your obligations can be like rising water, covering the familiar ground of your day. But beneath that, there is a deeper layer in you that remains untouched, a cool, steady place, a well, a still pool. You don't have to force your mind into silence. You can simply sink gently toward that deeper layer. The boat helps you do that. The rain helps you do that. The repeating phrase, 7 days and 7 nights, helps you do that. And if you drift off while listening, that's perfect. The story will keep holding its rhythm like rain on a roof. As the waiting continues, the rain begins to soften. Not abruptly, but gradually, as if the sky is learning to breathe again. The sound on the roof becomes lighter. The air outside feels less heavy. The boat still rocks, but the motion becomes slower, wider, calmer. One morning, the light looks different. Not brighter exactly, just cleaner, as if the world has been rinsed. The horizon is still mostly water, but the color has changed. A pale grey-blue that suggests the storm has moved farther away. And inside the boat, people notice this without celebration. They simply notice it the way you notice when your own anxiety has eased a fraction quietly, with relief rather than excitement. They listen. There is more silence between raindrops now, more space, more breath. If you've been tense, let your shoulders loosen again. Let your hands rest open. Let your eyes be heavy. You're allowed to enter this quieter phase of the night. Soon, the story will offer us a tender turning point. The water's receding, the first hint of land, the sense that after a long stretch of uncertainty, something stable can return. And beyond that, in the far, gentle distance, there is a name the old stories speak with softness. Dilmun, a place imagined as clean, bright, untroubled by illness or sorrow. Not a dramatic paradise, not a noisy reward, but a calm idea of there is still goodness. We don't have to reach it quickly, we only have to know it exists like a small lamp in the distance. For now, stay inside the boat a little longer. Listen to the thinning rain. Feel the rocking that is almost a cradle. Let the day fall away completely. And when the first quiet sign of land appears, we will see it together, gently, without hurry, like a dream revealing its next image. There is a particular kind of quiet that arrives after long rain. It is not empty and it is not sharp. It's the quiet of a world that has been listening to water for so long that when the water softens, everything else becomes noticeable again. Your own breathing, the small creak of wood, the gentle hush of air moving through a crack in the boards. Inside the boat, the warmth holds, and the smell of resin and damp rope remains familiar now, like the scent of a blanket you've had for years. And the rocking continues, but it has changed. The motion is wider, slower, less restless, like the water has grown tired of being loud. If your body is still tense in any small place, behind the ribs, at the back of the neck, in the hands, let the boat's slower rhythm invite that place to soften. In. The boat rises a little. Out. The boat settles and you settle too. In the Mesopotamian imagination, the flood does not end with a dramatic announcement. There is no sudden trumpet, there is only noticing. First, someone notices that the sound on the roof has changed. The tapping becomes lighter, more spaced out, as though the sky is stepping back. The air outside smells less like heavy cloud and more like clean distance. The wind arrives in small breaths, not in gusts. Then someone notices that the boat, when it rocks, does not pull against the rope quite as strongly. The water is still there, but it feels lower, as if it has begun to remember its own boundaries. And if you listen closely, you can sense the way hope enters this scene, not as excitement, but as relief. Relief is gentle. Relief is the body realizing it doesn't have to brace quite so hard. If you've been bracing for a long time, against stress, against uncertainty, against the constant demand to keep going, let this moment offer you a small, safe lesson. You do not need to force calm. You only need to notice it when it arrives. On one of these mornings, the light is pale and thin, as if the sun is behind a veil. The surface of the water is a soft grey blue, and the last of the rain hangs in the air like a fine mist. The boat glides without struggle. The world feels rinsed. Someone opens a small hatch, only a little, to taste the air. It is cool. It carries the faint scent of wet clay and reed beds. It smells like the river after it has decided to be a river again. And in that breath of air, the inside of the boat changes too. The lamp flame steadies. The warmth feels kinder. The space feels less like a shelter under siege and more like a room returning to ordinary life. If your eyes are closed, you might imagine that hatch as the gentle opening of your own breath. A small widening, a little more room. In. The air enters. Out. The air leaves unhurried. The waters continue to lower, slowly enough that nobody panics. Slowly enough that the mind has time to loosen. Slowly enough that the story remains safe for sleep. And then, at some point, so simple you might almost miss it, there is a change in texture. The boat bumps something, not a hard impact, not a frightening jolt. Just a soft touch, like a finger tapping a table. Wood against something solid. A gentle reminder, there is ground beneath the water. There always was. Someone leans closer to the opening, squinting into the mist. The horizon is still water, still wide, but now it holds a line, a faint, darker stroke where land might be. It is not the triumphant return of a kingdom. It is just a thin promise. Stability exists, and the promise is enough. It is easy in modern life to imagine that stability must arrive as a grand transformation, a new job, a perfect plan, a dramatic breakthrough. But sometimes stability arrives as a small, nearly invisible line on the horizon. Sometimes it is simply one calm morning after many anxious nights. Sometimes it is the first time your shoulders drop without you having to tell them to. That is what this moment is, a soft return. In the old story, there may be a bird released, something light and living sent into the open air to test what the world has become. But we can hold that detail in a gentle way. We can imagine a small creature dark against the pale sky, wings moving with quiet determination. It circles once, twice, and then disappears into the mist. It is not a spectacle. It is a small act of trust. And trust at night is a kind of medicine, because sleep itself is trust. Every time you close your eyes, you are trusting the world enough to let go. That's not a small thing. It's a brave, quiet thing. And you deserve to do it. As the water continues to settle, another kind of sound returns, one you might not expect, the sound of absence. The absence of rain, the absence of urgency, the absence of that constant drumming. In the distance, a bird calls. The call is simple, almost questioning. Then silence again, then another call farther away, like the world checking that it still knows how to speak. Inside the boat, people do not cheer, they breathe. They rest their hands on the wooden boards and feel the steadiness. They exchange glances that say, without words, we made it through the weather, and that in itself is enough. Now, gently, let's bring our anchor city back into view. Eridu. Not as a map point, but as a feeling. The smell of marsh reeds, the warmth of mud brick at dusk. The low platform of the temple rising above flat land. A place where water is not only a threat, but a companion. Sweet water in wells, canal water in fields, the deep Absu beneath everything, cool and sustaining. In some traditions, kingship returns after the flood. Life reorganizes itself. Cities begin again. The list continues because lists are what people do when they want to feel the world is held in order. But for our night story, what matters most is not governance, it is the psychological truth beneath it. After storms, humans rebuild. Not always perfectly, not always quickly, but gently. Step by step. Brick by brick. Breath by breath. If you have been through a personal storm, an illness, a loss, a season of heavy stress, this is the kind of rebuilding you already understand, even if you don't always give yourself credit. You have been laying small bricks in the dark. You have been making a home inside yourself, bit by bit. And maybe tonight is one of those bricks. A quiet story, a steady rhythm, a reminder that the water's lower. Now the story offers us an even softer discovery, one that feels almost designed for sleep. In certain Sumerian reflections, humans are created so that the gods can rest. It is a mythic way of saying something tender and practical. Rest is part of the structure of the world. Rest is not an afterthought. It is not something you earn only when everything is finished. Rest is a role, a duty almost, like the river's duty to return to its bed, like the night's duty to cover the land. If even the oldest stories imagine rest as sacred, then you do not need to apologize for wanting it. You don't have to prove you deserve sleep. You are allowed to put the day down. And here, as the boat steadies against new ground, the mind can soften into a deeper kind of quiet. The kind where worries are still present, but they are far away, blurred like distant lights in fog. If you'd like, you can offer yourself a small sentence, something simple enough to sink into the body without argument. I can rest now. In and out. I can rest now. Beyond the practical return of land, there is another place in these old imaginations, a place that functions like a gentle closing light, Dilmun. Dilmun is not described like a noisy paradise. It is described like cleanliness, like ease, a place without sickness, without sorrow, a place where pain does not press against you in the night. It is less a destination for feet and more a destination for the nervous system, the idea that such peace exists somewhere. And you don't have to get there tonight. You only have to let the idea of it settle inside you like the last rain settling into the earth. Imagine Dilmun as a pale shore under soft morning light. The air is warm but not heavy. The water is clear. The sand is smooth. The world feels uncluttered. Even the colors are gentle, cream, soft gold, the faint green of reeds in distance. It is a place where the body stops scanning for threats. A place where the mind stops rehearsing. A place where you can simply be. If your room does not feel like Dilmun, that's okay. The story can bring a little of Dilmun into the room. It can place a faint, clean light behind your eyelids. It can smooth your thoughts the way waves smooth stones. And as we move toward the end of this part, I want to offer one more gentle reminder, something that belongs to our quiet corner of the night. Here, no one rests alone. Even if you are listening in a silent house, even if the world feels far away, this story is a soft lantern. And somewhere, others are listening too, breathing, letting their shoulders drop, allowing sleep to come. You are part of a calm, invisible community, stitched together by the simple desire to feel safe. If tonight's story has touched a beautiful memory, rain on a roof, a childhood evening, a quiet boat ride, the smell of wet earth, save it like a small stone in your pocket. And if you want to share it later, you can. There is no rush. For now, let the boat rest against land. Let the mist thin. Let the first clean air of after rain enter your lungs. In clean air, out the last of the storm. And in the next part, we'll drift closer to Eridu's temple once more, down toward the Abzu's cool stillness, and we'll let the story's pace slow even further, until it feels less like listening to history and more like floating inside a dream. Now that the rain has thinned in your mind, let's keep moving the way the story prefers to move, slowly, like a boat that has found calmer water. If you are still awake, you can let your attention rest on something simple. The weight of your blanket, the touch of fabric against your skin, the steady rise and fall of your breathing. And if you are drifting, that is perfect. You can drift while the story continues the way a river continues, even when nobody watches it. Tonight, our anchor is still Eridu. Eridu, the city by sweet water and marsh reeds, but where the horizon stays wide and the air at dusk cools gently, as if it knows the secret purpose of evening, to soften everything. Imagine the world after the flood has settled. The land is dark with moisture, the soil rich and heavy. The canals are full again, but calmer, flowing in their familiar channels. The reeds stand tall, shaking off the last drops of water. Birds return in cautious arcs, then with more confidence, as if the sky is remembering its ordinary patterns. People return too, not with fireworks, not with triumphant banners, but with baskets, with tools, with the quiet labor of beginning again. A wall is repaired, a doorframe is set straight, a roof is patched. Clay is mixed with straw, shaped into bricks, laid in patient lines. Each brick is small, each brick is enough. And if your own life has been in a season of rebuilding after stress, after change, after a long stretch of feeling too full, this is the kind of rebuilding you already know. Not a sudden transformation, but a gentle return to structure, a slow, practical tenderness. And at the center of this returning world, the temple rises again in our imagination, the Abzu of Eridu. The name itself feels like cool water on the tongue. Abzu, the deep, the hidden sweet water beneath the earth. In Sumerian thought, beneath the surface world, beneath the fields, beneath the bricks, beneath the feet of everyday life, there is a quiet reservoir. Fresh water, still cold, sustaining. Not the loud, shifting water of floods, but the kind of water that waits in darkness and feeds springs. The Abzu is not only a place in myth, and it is also a feeling. The sense that beneath everything noisy there is something calm. If you want, you can try to sense that calm in yourself right now. Not by forcing your thoughts to stop, but by imagining a deeper layer under them, the way deep water exists under waves, in, as if you are drawing water up from a well, out, as if you are letting it settle, smooth and still. The temple complex in Eridu is quiet at this hour. It is late evening, the day's heat has faded, the air is mild with a hint of dampness from the marsh. A thin haze hangs close to the ground, turning lantern light into soft halos. Somewhere nearby, a canal makes a sound like a long exhale. A few figures move through the courtyard, their steps unhurried. Perhaps a caretaker closes a wooden gate, the hinge giving a gentle groan. Perhaps a priest sets down a small bowl of water, not with drama, but with respect. Perhaps an older scribe, tired in the best way, sits near a doorway, letting the night cool his hands. And then, in a room set back from the courtyard, another scribe begins his work. This is where our story returns again and again, because the act of writing is so soothing when you watch it closely. The scribe's tools are simple: a reed stylus, a bowl of water, a lump of prepared clay, and the steady patience of a practiced hand. Nothing glitters. Nothing demands attention. The power is in the rhythm. He kneads the clay, turning it like dough. He presses it into a small tablet and smooths the surface with the flat of his palm. The clay is cool and slightly gritty, earth made tame. He sets it on his lap, adjusts the lamp so the light falls at an angle, and begins to press. One wedge, a pause, another wedge, a pause. If your mind wants to wander, let it wander. The wedges will keep returning like a metronome. Tonight, the scribe is not writing a list of barley or a count of sheep. He is copying an old hymn, perhaps one that praises Enki, lord of sweet water, keeper of crafts, the quiet intelligence beneath the world. Enki is not a storm god in these images. He is not a shout. He is a current. Some stories place his home in the Abzu itself, the subterranean deep where sweet water rests. In some tellings, Enki sleeps there, not as someone unaware, but as someone so deeply rooted in stillness that his rest feels like wisdom. Picture it gently, not a dramatic cavern, not a frightening depth, just cool water under stone, silent, clean, held. Imagine the god of wisdom, not pacing, not arguing, not clenching. Imagine him sleeping the way a river stone sleeps underwater, still, steady, patiently present. If you are tired, you might feel something in that image. Permission. Permission to let your own mind loosen. Permission to stop gripping the day. Permission to let your thoughts become less sharp, more fluid, more like water. If you'd like, you can try a small practice. With each exhale, imagine a little of the day's tension sinking down into that deep, cool place. Not disappearing, not being forced away, just settling, the way sediment settles to the bottom of a pond. Out, settling out, settling out, settling. The scribe's hymn continues. He writes of water that nourishes, of canals that bring life, of the crafts that turn raw earth into shelter, of wisdom that does not need to be loud to be powerful. And as he presses each sign into clay, something tender happens. The story becomes portable. It becomes something that can be stored, shared, preserved. A thought made solid. It is easy to forget in our modern world of glowing screens and endless noise how intimate writing once was. A tablet was not a broadcast. It was a small object you could hold in your hands. You could turn it over. You could trace the wedges with your fingertip. You could feel the effort of the person who made it. Even now, the idea of it can comfort you. Someone, long ago, took time to press meaning into Earth so it could outlast a night, outlast a lifetime, outlast a storm. And if that is possible, if a gentle thought can last that long, then perhaps your own gentle moments matter more than you think. A quiet breath, a kind sentence, a soft memory. These are small, but they are real. Outside the room, the city of Eridu settles into night. A family on a rooftop speaks in murmurs, their voices drifting like smoke. A baby stirs and is soothed. A pot cools on a hearth. A dog circles and lies down, sighing once, twice, then becoming still. The marshland holds its own nocturnal music. Frogs, insects, a distant splash. None of it is urgent. It is the steady sound of life continuing. If you are listening from a busy place, an apartment, a city street, a room where the world never fully quiets, let Eridu's steadiness blend with your own surroundings. Let the imagined canal become the hum of your room. Let the reed beds become the soft texture of your blanket. Let the temple's lantern light become the faint glow behind your eyelids. And this is how stories heal. They borrow your reality and soften it from the inside. And now we come to a soft discovery, one that is gentle and a little surprising, but not sharp. In many modern retellings, certain names from these myths are pulled into loud theories, but in the earliest contexts, those names often carry a quieter function. The Anunnaki, for instance, are not required to be sensational. They can simply be understood as a group of divine figures connected to decision, destiny, and the ordering of the world, not visitors, not interruptions, just a way of describing structure. And structure is comforting at night, because when your nervous system is tired, it longs for order, predictable rhythms, stable images, a sense that life has a pattern even when you feel unsure. And that is what these old stories offer, when told gently. A house made of myth, with a roof and floor and deep water beneath, sky above, earth below, air between, sweet water under, the world held in layers like blankets. As the scribe finishes a line of the hymn, he pauses. He wets the stylus, he shifts the tablet slightly. The clay is beginning to firm. The lamp's flame is smaller now, but steady. He writes a final sign, then stops. For a moment, he simply sits with the tablet in his hands, feeling its weight. It is not heavy, but it is substantial. It is real. Then he sets it aside to dry. Perhaps he places it near a doorway where night air can cool it. Perhaps he sets it on a shelf in the temple archive. In either case, the tablet becomes quiet. It begins its long rest. There is something deeply soothing in that. Even words can sleep. And if words can sleep, you can too. If you're still awake, allow your eyes to feel heavier. If you're already drifting, let the drift deepen. There is no test here. No one is grading your listening. Now let's take a slow walk, only in imagination, through the temple precinct, down toward the symbolic idea of the Abzu. You step out of the scribe's room into the courtyard. The air is cooler, the lantern light is soft, turning the packed earth into warm shadow. A faint breeze carries the scent of water and reeds. Somewhere, a small pool reflects the stars, barely moving. You walk slowly, not for distance, but for rhythm. One step, One breath, one step, one breath. You pass a storage room where jars are stacked, oil, grain, perhaps dried fish. You pass a wall where the day's heat has faded into a gentle coolness. Or you pass a doorway where someone has left a small lamp burning like a kindness. And then you reach a quieter corner, a basin perhaps, a well, a place where sweet water is drawn. The water is dark and still, and when you look at it, you feel the same calm you felt when you imagined Namu's primordial sea, only this is smaller, closer, more intimate. This is the Abzu made near. You could dip your hand into it and feel the coolness run over your fingers. You could listen and hear nothing dramatic, only the softest hint of depth, a silence with weight. If you want, place your attention there for a moment, in that imagined water, and then, without moving your body, notice that your own breath is like that water. It goes deep. It is quiet. It does not need applause. In, deep, out, quiet. Now, in the distance, beyond the marsh, beyond the city's low roofs, there is a pale place the old stories sometimes describe, Dilmun. We have named it before as an idea of clean peace. Tonight, we will keep it gentle and far, a shore you don't need to reach, a softness you can simply know exists, like a promise tucked into the corner of the mind. And between Eridu and Dilmun, between the Abzu and the open sea, between the clay tablet and your listening body, there is one steady thread, the permission to rest. If the Sumerians imagined that humans could take on labor so the gods could rest, then rest becomes part of order. It becomes sacred. It becomes rightful. So here is a quiet truth you can carry into sleep. You do not need to finish everything tonight. You do not need to hold the world together with your jaw clenched. You can let the deep water hold you. But if you feel like leaving a gentle comment later, you can simply write, "I'm letting the day settle." It can be small, it can be just for you. For now, let's end this part the way a candle ends, slowly, without a sudden snap. Imagine the tablet drying in the corner of the temple archive. Imagine the Abzu under the earth, cool and still. Imagine Enki sleeping, not alone, but as part of the world's quiet structure. Imagine Dilmun as a pale shore in the far distance, clean and untroubled. And then let your own breath become the last image. In, like water rising gently. Out, like water lowering, calm and safe. In the next part, we'll stay close to the temple's archive and the everyday life of the scribes, their calm routines, the way they learned to turn fear into order, and how the smallest wedge in clay could become a lantern in the dark. And as we drift there, you may notice something beautiful. The more quietly you listen, the more quietly your body begins to answer. If you're still awake, just let yourself be comfortably awake for a moment. No effort, no pressure. And if you're already drifting, let the drift continue. Tonight's story doesn't need you to hold it tightly. It can carry itself like water finding its own path. We are back in Eridu in the softer hours of night when the city feels like it has exhaled and settled. The rooftops are quiet, the canals keep their gentle movement. The marshlands beyond the houses murmur with a low, living music, frogs, insects, a distant splash, then silence again. And in the temple precinct, the Abzu, the house of deep waters, there is a room that feels like the inside of a memory, the archive. You might imagine the archive as a dramatic library, but here it is simpler and calmer. It is a cool storeroom built of mud brick, with walls thick enough to hold steady temperature. The doorway is narrow. The air inside smells faintly of clay dust, straw, and the soft oil scent of lamps that have burned here for years. Along the walls, shelves and niches hold stacks of tablets. Some are small and oval, like smooth river stones. Some are larger, flatter, like thin bricks meant for longer writing. Many are stored in baskets or wrapped in cloth or placed in neat piles that look almost like sleeping animals curled together. And if you stand very still, you can feel the atmosphere of it, not eerie, not heavy, just quiet in a particular way. This is the quiet of preserved thought, the quiet of words waiting. It is comforting to know that humans have always wanted a safe place for their meanings. In the day, scribes come and go. They bring fresh tablets to dry. They retrieve older ones to copy or consult. They organize, label, stack. But at night, the archive becomes a resting place. The clay rests, the stories rest, the work rests. Imagine walking into the archive now, as if you are a gentle visitor who has been allowed to enter. Your footsteps are soft on packed earth. A lamp in your hand gives off a small, warm circle of light. Shadows sit peacefully in the corners, not threatening, just quiet. You hold the lamp lower, and the shelves glow like honey. On one shelf there are administrative tablets, counts of grain and wool, lists of deliveries, measures of barley. Not romantic, but steady. These are the tablets of daily life, proof that life was always made of small details. Even in ancient cities, people ate, people stored food, people counted what mattered, and the ordinary was sacred simply because it was real. On another shelf there are school tablets, practice pieces where an apprentice scribe copied signs again and again, learning the patient language of wedges. You can almost see the student's careful hand, pressing too hard at first, then gentler, then more confident. You can imagine the teacher's quiet correction, not harsh, just steady. A scribe was not made overnight. The craft required repetition, like the repetition of breath. One sign, a pause, another sign, a pause. And the mind learned, slowly, that order can be created from softness. If you've ever learned something difficult in your life, a new skill, a new job, a new way of being after a hard season, you know this kind of learning. Not fast, not glamorous, just small steps repeated until they become part of you, here. And even that effort is stored, like a gentle record of human patience. And then, deeper in the archive, there are the tablets we came for tonight, the mythic texts, the hymns, the old questions about beginnings. Not written to shock, but to steady. You lift one tablet from its resting place. It is cool and dry, heavier than you expect. Your fingers feel the slight roughness of baked clay. The wedge marks catch faint shadows in the lamplight, making the writing look almost like a small landscape. You don't have to read the signs to feel what they represent, the desire to understand, to remember, to connect. In Sumerian stories, the world begins with Namu, the primordial sea, still and undivided. The sky and earth open space like a slow breath. The deep, fresh waters of the Abzu sit beneath the ground, sustaining everything quietly. Enki dwells there, a figure of wisdom and craft, sometimes pictured in sleep, sometimes pictured in calm attention. And even the flood, when it comes, is told in a way that can be held safely. Rain like a steady curtain, a boat as a warm inside, waiting until the waters lower and the world returns. Standing in the archive, you might notice how these images belong together. Water above, water below, weather and well, flood and spring, movement and stillness. It's almost like the ancient mind was saying, life will always contain both. And the secret is not to eliminate movement, but to remember the stillness beneath it. If you want, take a gentle breath right now, matching that idea. In, as if drawing up cool water from a deep place. Out, as if letting surface waves smooth themselves. Now, and here comes a soft discovery, one that feels more like a comforting thought than a twist. These tablets did not survive because someone made a grand plan for immortality. They survived because people kept putting them away carefully. A scribe finished writing, then let the clay dry. Someone carried the tablet to the archive. Someone placed it among others. Someone later found it useful enough to copy. Another person did the same. Over generations, that care accumulated like layers of sediment, protecting the words the way the earth protects seeds. It's a quiet kind of survival. Not heroic, not loud, just steady care. And that's human, isn't it? The most enduring things in our lives are often not the dramatic moments, but the repeated kindnesses, the small routines, the way we return to what soothes us, the way we keep something safe because it matters. In a way, you have your own archive, not of clay, but of memory, of phrases that comfort you, of songs that calm you, of places you return to in your mind when the world feels too much. And when you listen to a story at night, you're adding another tablet to that inner shelf, another gentle object you can reach for later. If tonight's story is becoming one of those small comforts, you could leave a gentle comment for yourself whenever you're ready. Something simple like, "I'm building my quiet archive. No one has to see it but you. Now let's stay in the archive a little longer and let the details remain soft and slow." You set the first tablet down and pick up another. This one might be a hymn written with careful reverence. Many hymns were addressed to gods, but they were also addressed to the human need for structure. A hymn is a way of making order with sound. It is a pattern the mind can lean on, and the scribes understood patterns. They sometimes wrote colophons, little notes at the end of texts, naming the copyist or the place or a blessing. They were not always personal in our modern sense, but they were human marks of presence. A quiet way of saying, someone was here. Someone cared enough to copy this. Do you know where you're listening from tonight? You don't need to answer right away, but if you do, it can be a gentle act of presence, a small colophon of your own. A way to say, I was here in this moment, letting my mind soften. In the archive, time feels different. The lamp flame is small, the air is cool, and the stacks of tablets don't rush. But they hold centuries, the way a deep pool holds reflected stars. If you walk along the shelves, you may notice that the archive is organized, but not in a way that would overwhelm you. It is practical. Texts that belong together are placed together. School exercises with school exercises, administrative records with administrative records, hymns with hymns, lists with lists. And there is something soothing about that too. The knowledge that even ancient people needed to sort their lives into manageable bundles. You might imagine a scribe's day. He wakes early when the air is still cool. He washes his hands. He eats something simple, bread, dates, maybe a bit of fish. He walks to the temple precinct as the sun rises and the light turns the marsh into a pale shimmer. He sits. He prepares clay. He shapes tablets. He writes. Not quickly, not frantically. He writes with the calm attention of someone who understands that meaning is made in small presses. Sometimes he copies a text. Sometimes he records a delivery. Sometimes he teaches a younger student. And throughout it all, the same rhythm returns. Press, pause, press, pause. By midday, the heat is stronger and the room smells of warm clay. By late afternoon, the day slows. At evening, he carries dried tablets to the archive, places them in their resting place and leaves them to sleep. Then he goes home, to a roof under stars, to a family, to food, to silence. It is not a life free of hardship, no ancient life truly was, but it is a life that contains steady routines. And routines are a kind of safety. And if you have been living in a world that feels too fast, too loud, too unpredictable, and let the scribe's routine offer your mind a softer rhythm. Let it remind you that life can be lived in patient repetitions, that you don't have to sprint through everything. Now let's return gently to the Abzu, the deep, sweet water beneath the earth. In the Sumerian imagination, that deep water is always there, even when surface water storms. It is the hidden reserve, the quiet source. And tonight, the archive itself feels like an Abzu for words, a deep place where language is stored, cool and safe, waiting. If you could store one gentle thought in clay tonight, one sentence meant only to soothe you, what would it be? You don't have to answer. You can simply feel the question like a warm stone in the hand. Sometimes a question is enough. It creates a small space in the mind, a space where rest can settle. The lamp flickers gently, and not wildly, just a soft wavering, as if the flame is breathing. You set the tablet back down, you step away from the shelves, you pause at the doorway of the archive and look back at the sleeping stacks. So many quiet voices, so many patient hands, so much care preserved in earth. And then you turn, slowly, and walk back into the courtyard. The night air meets you, cooler now, cleaner. The stars are clearer. The marsh is a dark band at the edge of the city, and the canal's surface catches a thin line of moonlight. You feel, in the simplest way, that the world is held, and if the world is held, you can be held too. In the next part, we'll let the story drift toward Dilmun, not as a place we must reach, but as a soft idea of peace. We'll follow the way the ancient imagination created a clean shore beyond struggle, and then we'll let that shore become a gentle closing light for your mind. For now, stay with the feeling of the archive, sleeping words, safe in clay, resting without effort, just like you. Let the feeling of the archive remain with you for a moment longer. Cool shelves, sleeping tablets, quiet lamplight, until it begins to dissolve naturally into the night air outside, like warmth leaving a stone after sunset. You step into the courtyard again, slow and unhurried. The temple walls are calm, holding the day's heat in a gentle memory. Above you, the stars look steady, like they have always looked, like they will always look. And somewhere beyond the low roofs of Eridu, beyond the reed beds and the dark marsh water, there is a name that floats through the old imagination like a soft note held at the end of a song. Dilmun. It isn't shouted, and it isn't demanded. It's spoken the way you might speak to someone you don't want to wake, quietly, with care. In some ancient texts, Dilmun is described as a place of purity and ease, a clean shore where certain kinds of suffering do not press as hard, a place with fewer sharp edges, a place where the air itself feels gentle. Tonight, we won't treat Dilmun like a destination you must reach. We'll treat it like an idea the mind can rest inside, the way the body rests inside a blanket. Not an escape from life, but a soft room within it, a place you can visit when you need to feel unburdened for a while. If it helps, imagine that Dilmun is not far away in distance, but far away in mood. You don't travel there with effort. You drift there by softening. So let your breathing become simple again. In, as if you are drawing in cool night air. Out, as if you are letting the day fall away, layer by layer. Now, in your mind's eye, picture the water around Eridu, canals, marshes, wells, and the deep sweet reservoir beneath, the Abzu. Water is everywhere in this world, and water is always doing what it does best, carrying, soothing, reflecting, returning. Dilmun, in this gentle telling, is a place where water feels especially kind. Imagine a shoreline under early morning light. The sky is pale, cream and soft blue, with the faintest blush near the horizon. The air is warm but not heavy, the kind of warmth that relaxes your shoulders without making you restless. There is no harsh wind, only a mild breeze that moves like a slow breath. The sand is smooth, as if it has been brushed clean. The water is clear, and it comes in with small, regular waves, no crashing, no drama, just a steady hush that repeats until your mind stops trying to solve anything. Hush and return, hush and return. If your thoughts keep arriving, you can let them be like those waves. They come, they soften, they leave. You don't have to chase them, you don't have to hold them. You can simply let them pass through gently. In some descriptions, Dilmun is a place without sickness, without sorrow, without certain kinds of ache. It is not that life becomes unreal, it's that life becomes lighter. The burdens you've carried for so long are set down as naturally as setting down a bag at the door when you finally come home. If you've been carrying something quietly, stress you don't talk about, worry you keep folded inside your chest, imagine placing it on the sand beside you. The sand is cool and patient. It doesn't judge. It simply holds. And if you can't set it down all at once, that's okay. You can set it down a little at a time. A small corner of the worry, a small portion of the tension, one breath's worth. Out a little lighter, out a little lighter. Now let's drift slowly through Dilmun the way you might drift through a pleasant dream. There are palm trees in the distance, their fronds moving softly in the breeze. There is fresh water too, sweet water, clear and calm, running in small channels that do not rush. Birds call occasionally, but the calls are gentle, short, and spaced far apart, leaving plenty of quiet between them. You walk barefoot along the shore. The sand is warm near the surface and cooler beneath, and each step is unhurried. You are not trying to arrive anywhere. You are simply moving because movement feels soothing. A step, pause, step, pause. It is the same rhythm as the scribe's stylus in clay, translated into feet on sand. The same message expressed in a different language. Slow is safe. As you walk, you notice the light. It isn't bright in a way that demands attention. It is soft, like the glow of a lamp seen through linen. It makes edges gentle. It turns shadows into velvet. This is important because your mind at night can be sensitive to sharp edges. The nervous system is always listening for sudden change. So Dilmun, as an image, offers the opposite. A world where the light itself is patient. If you want, let your eyelids feel heavier now. Let them rest, even if they're still open a little. Let the muscles around your eyes soften, as if they are sinking into warm sand, in and out, slowly. Now, as we move through this imagined place, there is a quiet truth hidden inside it, one that connects directly back to Eridu and the Abzu. The Sumerians lived with cycles. Water rose and fell. Seasons shifted, work came and went. And within those cycles, they imagined places like Dilmun, not to deny hardship, but to give the soul a resting point. A resting point is not a lie, it is a tool. It is how you make room for breath. Modern life rarely gives you resting points on its own. It gives you scrolling, it gives you noise, it gives you another thing to do. So you must choose resting points deliberately. You build them the way scribes built their tablets, patiently, one small impression at a time. This story is one of those impressions. And if tonight's journey is bringing you calm, you can leave a gentle comment for yourself later. Something small like, I'm finding my shore, not to perform, not to impress, just as a quiet marker. I was here, and I softened. Do you remember the last time you felt truly unburdened, if only for a minute? If a memory comes, let it arrive gently. Maybe it was a morning when the air felt clean. Maybe it was a quiet car ride with music low. Maybe it was a moment in the kitchen when the light fell in a soft stripe across the floor. Or maybe it was simply the moment you climbed into bed and realized you didn't have to speak anymore. If no memory comes, that's fine too. Dilmun can be the memory for now. A new, gentle picture your mind can hold without effort. Now let's make the image even softer, even more suited for sleep. Imagine a small, shaded place beneath a palm tree. The fronds make a light pattern on the sand, moving slowly as the breeze moves. There is a shallow pool nearby, fed by sweet water. The surface is still, reflecting the sky in a pale shimmer. If you look closely, you can see tiny ripples where a drop falls from a leaf. A single drop. A ripple. Then stillness again. If your mind has been rippling, let it learn from that pool. A thought can fall and then stillness can return. A sensation can pass and the body can remain safe. You sit down in the shade, the sand supports you. Your shoulders drop naturally, as if the place itself is helping you. Your breathing slows without you having to manage it. In, shade. Out, softness. Now in the distance, you can still sense the world you came from. Eridu's low roofs, the temple platform, the archive of clay. Those things do not disappear. They remain steady, like the past remains. But they feel far enough away that they no longer press against you. This is another gentle lesson from the old imagination. Distance can be created without leaving. Sometimes you create distance by changing your relationship to a thought, not by erasing it. If a worry comes up tonight, you can place it at the far edge of the shore. You can say quietly, you can be there, but you don't have to be close. And then you return your attention to the simplest thing again. Breath. In. Out. Now let's weave in one more soft thread of Sumerian reflection, something that fits perfectly beside the idea of Dilmun. In some interpretations, humans are made so that the gods can rest. Whether or not you take it literally, the emotional meaning is gentle. Rest is part of order. Rest is not a reward at the end of perfection. Rest is a necessary rhythm, as normal as the tide returning. In Dilmun's light, you can finally believe that. You can let yourself be part of the world's rhythm instead of fighting it. So I'll say it plainly as a permission you can lean on. You don't have to finish everything tonight. If your mind tries to argue, you don't have to argue back. You can simply repeat the permission like a lullaby. You don't have to finish everything tonight. In, out. And now we let the shore become quieter still. The breeze slows, the birds fall silent. The water keeps its gentle hush. The light turns softer, as if the morning is slowly becoming a warm afternoon nap. The shade under the palm deepens. The pool's surface becomes almost perfectly still. You might notice that the whole scene is beginning to feel like a calming object, like a smooth stone you can hold in your hand. This is where stories become most useful for sleep. They simplify. They narrow the mind's field of view to one steady image so the nervous system stops scanning. So let's choose one image to hold now, a quiet pool in Dilmun, reflecting pale sky, with one leaf above it and one slow drop falling. You can watch the drop fall without urgency. It takes its time. It is almost floating. Drop, ripple, still. If you feel your body sinking deeper into the bed, let it sink. If you feel your jaw relaxing, let it relax. If you feel your breathing stretching longer, let it stretch longer. And if you fall asleep here, that's perfect. because the story is designed to continue even without you. The past does not require your effort, it simply flows like water. In the next part, Yao will drift back from Dilmun's shore to the everyday world one last time, back to Eridu's calm routines and the scribe's gentle patience, so that when we finally close the journey, you feel as though you're being carried home, not pushed forward. For now, stay with the clean shore, stay with the shade, stay with the pool, and let your breathing become the tide, coming in softly and leaving softly, again and again, until sleep arrives like a quiet lantern being lowered into deep water. Stay with the shore for one more breath, as if you are letting the last grain of sand fall from your palm. Dilmun does not close like a door. It fades like a mist, gently, without any demand that you snap back into waking life. In and out. Now imagine that you are walking back toward Eridu, not with tired feet, but with a calmer nervous system, and the same way you might return from a short nap. The world's still there, but your body softer inside it. The path is not hurried, it follows water. A narrow canal slides through the land like a ribbon of dark glass. Reeds lean over it, whispering, and then falling still. In the distance, a boat moves slowly, leaving a V-shaped wake that disappears behind it. The oar dips, lifts, patient as breathing. If you can, let your breath match that motion. In, dip, out, lift. As you travel, you notice the small, steady things that make a city feel safe. Smoke rising from a cooking fire, thin and pale. A clay jar set at a doorway. The soft thud of sandals on packed earth. The faint call of a bird that sounds like a question and then stops asking. And then Eridu comes into view again, low and warm in the early light. A mud brick walls the color of sun-baked honey, rooflines simple and flat, a gentle haze near the ground where the last coolness of night is still lingering. Nothing here is dramatic, and that is why it works so well for sleep, because your mind before bed does not need drama. It needs steady images, it needs repetition. It needs a place where nothing sudden happens. You approach the temple precinct, the Abzu, where the platform rises just enough to feel like a calm anchor above the flat land. A few lamps still burn, small amber points. The air smells faintly of damp reeds and warm earth. Inside the courtyard, the day begins quietly, not with a rush, but with small routines. A caretaker opens a gate and pauses, listening to the morning. A priest rinses a bowl with sweet water, the sound like a soft sigh. A young apprentice sweeps dust in slow strokes, not because the dust is urgent, but because sweeping is a kind of order the body can understand. In the archive room, where tablets rest, the air is cool. The shelves hold their sleeping stacks. And soon a scribe arrives, simple, ordinary, human. He carries a small lump of prepared clay wrapped in cloth. He sets his lamp, even though the day is brightening, because lamplight is familiar and familiarity is calming. He wets his hands, kneads the clay, presses it into a smooth tablet. This is the part of the story I want you to feel more than remember, the steadiness of craft. One press, one pause. One press, one pause. Cuneiform does not come from speed, it comes from patience. Each wedge is a small commitment to calm attention, and as the scribe writes, he's not trying to convince anyone. And he's not trying to win an argument. He is simply copying what has been handed down, so the words can rest safely in clay. This is where we can hold our soft curiosity again, the quiet question we planted at the beginning before the modern noise. Before Anunnaki became a loud word, what did the tablets actually say? In the calm light of the archive, the answer is not a headline, it is a texture. Often, the word points to a group of divine figures connected to decisions, destinies, and the ordering of things, a way of naming structure, a way of describing the sense that the world has rules, seasons, boundaries, obligations, promises, and that those rules are larger than one person's mood. You can feel why this mattered in Mesopotamia. When your life depends on water arriving at the right time, on canals being maintained, on grain being stored, you learn to respect order. You learn that calm routines keep you alive. And at night, order is comfort. If you have been living in a world that feels chaotic, too many demands, too many voices, too many alarms, let the ancient idea of order become a soothing thought rather than a heavy one. Order can be gentle. Order can be a breath. Order can be a bedtime story that arrives every night like a tide. Now the scribe turns the tablet slightly, checking his lines. The clay is still soft enough to accept the reed. He adds another sign, then pauses to wet the stylus. Outside, the canal water moves. Inside, the lamp flame breathes. There is a beautiful symmetry in that, water and writing, both flowing in their own ways. And here is another soft discovery, not sensational, just tender. Many of the oldest texts are not trying to frighten you. They are trying to help you live with the fact that life changes. Rivers rise and fall. Cities grow and shrink. Storms arrive and pass. So the stories give you images you can return to when you feel unsteady. Deep water beneath the earth, a boat as refuge, a clean shore as peace, a list as order. They are ancient tools for the same nervous system you have today. If tonight's story is helping you feel even slightly safer, you can offer yourself a small kindness. Soften your hands. Let your fingers rest open. Let your shoulders sink a little deeper into the bed. Do you feel the difference between holding and resting? Holding takes effort. Resting is permission. In the temple courtyard, the day continues. Someone laughs softly, quickly, then the sound fades. And the city is awake, but not frantic. It moves like a slow river. And in the archive, the scribe finishes his tablet. He does not celebrate. He simply sets it aside the way you might set down a task at the end of the day. He places it near a doorway where air can dry it. He wipes his hands. He breathes. One more breath, like an ending. In, out. If you have trouble sleeping sometimes because your mind insists on finishing everything, let the scribe show you another way. You can stop before everything is complete. You can pause. You can let the clay dry without you watching it. You can let the story continue without your effort. Now let Dillman's clean light rest lightly over your room, softening the edges of thought. In the next part, we will sit beside the Abzu's symbolic water one last time, and we will let the idea of deep stillness beneath everything become a quiet practice you can take into sleep. We'll also let our final reflections gather about time, memory, and the simple human right to rest. For now, let your breath be the reed stylus, gentle, repetitive, steady. One press, one pause, one press, one pause. Before he leaves the archive, the scribe checks the shelves the way you might check the locks on a door before bed, not from fear, but from care. He straightens a small stack, aligns corners, brushes a trace of dust away with the side of his hand. The tablets look like they are sleeping more comfortably after that, neat, supported, undisturbed. Nearby, an apprentice sits with a practice tablet, copying the same sign again and again. The student's brow is slightly furrowed, not with stress, but with concentration, and the reed presses too deep once, and the mark looks heavy. The student pauses, breathes, presses again, more lightly. A small lesson in gentleness, learned through the fingertips. If you have ever tried to be kinder to yourself, you know this rhythm. First you press too hard, trying to force calm, trying to force control. Then slowly you learn the lighter touch. You learn that the mind responds better to softness than to pressure. Outside, the morning warms. Sunlight falls into the courtyard in a slanted band, turning dust motes into tiny floating sparks. A few pigeons land on a roofline, bob their heads, and then lift off again. The canal water catches the light and throws it back in small, trembling reflections. And somewhere beyond the temple walls, ordinary life continues in the gentlest ways. A woman pours water into a jar, and the stream makes a sound like silk. A man repairs a reed mat with calm hands. A child walks beside an older relative, matching their pace, learning without being told how to slow down. These details matter because your nervous system believes them. The brain trusts small, ordinary scenes. They tell it, nothing is hunting you, nothing is about to jump out, you can rest. If your mind is still scanning, offer it one more anchor. Imagine the scent of wet earth after rain. Imagine the coolness of a clay tablet against the palm. Imagine a single lamp flame steady in a quiet room. Sometimes when people say they can't sleep, what they mean is they don't feel safe enough to let go. So tonight, let's add safety the way the ancient city did, brick by brick, ritual by ritual, breath by breath. You might even picture a small phrase being pressed into clay, as if it were made just for you. I am allowed to rest. If that sentence feels true, let it sink in. If it doesn't feel true yet, that's okay. You can treat it as practice, like the apprentice's repeated signs until it becomes easier. I am allowed to rest. In, out. The scribe steps back into the courtyard and looks briefly toward the marshlands. The reeds are a dark green line under the widening sky. The air smells clean. He feels perhaps the same thing you might feel when your thoughts finally begin to soften. A quiet gratitude that the world keeps moving without your constant effort. And now, as we prepare to drift into deeper stillness, let one gentle question float through you, without needing an answer. What would it feel like to stop holding everything and simply be held? Just let the question be there like a feather on water. And if you drift, drift tonight. If you're still listening, let the listening be effortless now, like floating. And if you've been drifting in and out, that's perfectly welcome here. In this part, we won't introduce anything sharp. We'll simply return to one of the softest images the ancient world left us. Deep, sweet water beneath the earth, steady and cool, holding everything without noise. Picture Eridu again at the edge of evening. The sun has lowered and the sky is turning from pale gold to a gentle blue-grey. The city's mud-brick walls release their heat slowly, like a long exhale. A canal threads between houses, reflecting a thin ribbon of light. Reeds along the banks sway once, twice, and then settle. Somewhere inside the temple precinct, a small oil lamp is lit. Its flame does not flare. It simply glows, a quiet point of amber. Beyond it, the archive rooms rest with their stacks of tablets, and the courtyard lies still, as if the whole place is waiting for sleep. Now let your mind move downward, not with effort, but with softness, like sinking into warm sand. Beneath the packed earth of the courtyard, beneath the bricks and the roots and the cool, dark soil, imagine the Abzu, a reservoir of sweet water, hidden from sun and weather. In the old imagination, this is the world's calm foundation. It doesn't chase. It doesn't argue. It simply is. If it helps, let your breathing become the way you travel there, as if you're drawing water up from a deep well, out, as if you're letting it settle perfectly still. But with each exhale, you can feel yourself descending a little more, not falling, just drifting. Your shoulders can sink into the bed, your hands can become heavier, open and unguarded. Your jaw can loosen as though it no longer needs to hold a sentence. Tonight, think of the Abzu as a practice, not just a myth. A reminder that beneath surface movement there can be depth. Beneath thoughts there can be quiet. Beneath the day's noise there can be a steady place inside you that does not need to perform. In modern life, our minds often live on the surface. We skim messages, we scroll, we react. We keep one eye on what's next. It can feel like living in wind and waves all the time. So this is your invitation to go below the waves, not to disappear, but to rest. Imagine the surface of water above you, moonlight trembling small ripples, and the faint sound of a distant shore. It's not dangerous, just busy. Now imagine the deeper layer, darker, calmer, cooler. The sounds soften, the light becomes dim, gentle. Everything slows in, deeper, out, quieter. If a thought arrives, an unfinished task, a worry, a memory, let it be a ripple on the surface. You don't have to grab it. You can watch it move across the top while you remain in the deep. Thoughts can pass, the deep water stays. In the temple stories, Enki dwells in the Abzu. Some tellings describe him in restful stillness, as though wisdom itself is not frantic. It doesn't sprint, it doesn't shout, it rests. And from rest, it understands. You don't have to believe in gods to use this image. You only have to let it soothe you. The idea that the deepest intelligence in the world is quiet, that calm can be a form of strength. That rest can be part of order, not a failure of it. If you'd like, imagine Enki not as a person, but as a presence, like cool water running over stone, like shade on a hot day, like the moment a room goes silent and your body finally stops bracing. Now picture the Abzu as a wide underground pool. The water is clear in the imagination, even in darkness. If you reach your hand into it, it is cool, refreshing, safe. The surface barely moves. Above it, the earth is thick and protective. Above that, the city lives its small life. Above that, the sky opens with stars. But here, in the deep, nothing is demanding your attention. If you're someone who carries responsibility, family, work, decisions, let this be your place to set those responsibilities down for a while. Not forever, just for tonight. The world can hold itself for a few hours. The canal will keep flowing, the stars will keep turning, the clay tablets will keep sleeping on their shelves. You are allowed to rest, in and out. Imagine, for a moment, that you are standing beside a well in the temple precinct. The stone rim is cool beneath your fingers. The night air brushes your cheeks. You lower a simple clay bucket, and you hear the rope whisper through your hands. Down it goes into darkness until there is a soft, distant sound, water receiving it. You pull, slowly, not straining, just steady. The bucket rises with a quiet weight, and when it breaks the surface of the well, the sound is gentle, like a sigh. The water inside is clear enough to reflect a small star. You lift the bucket and pour a little into a bowl, and the stream makes a smooth, continuous sound that seems to rinse the mind. If you want, could imagine washing your hands in that bowl. The water is cool. It runs over your fingers and wrists, carrying away invisible dust. The day's residue, the small irritations, the restless urgency. You don't have to name what it carries away. You only have to feel the cooling, the simple fact that something soothing is touching you. Now imagine the bowl is set down and the water becomes still again. The surface is calm, like a mirror that refuses to show worry. In that stillness, you can place one simple intention. Tonight, I will not rush myself. In, unhurried, out, unhurried. The ancient people who lived by canals understood that rushing water can erode banks, but steady water nourishes fields. Your mind is similar. When it rushes, it scrapes itself raw. When it steadies, it feeds you. So if you notice your thoughts speeding up, But you can gently return to the well, return to the bowl, return to the still surface. Let your attention become a small, quiet object you can hold. And if your body is ready for sleep, you may notice tiny signs, a heavier blink, a slower swallow, a warmth spreading through the chest, a soft sinking in the hips and shoulders. These are the body's ancient language, older than words. When you feel them, you don't need to do anything except allow them. You might notice that the body knows how to rest when it feels safe. It doesn't need elaborate instructions, it only needs the signal, no urgency, no threat, no performance. This story is one of those signals offered gently. So let's make the signal clearer. Let your forehead soften, let your tongue rest in the mouth. Let the space behind your eyes feel warm and heavy. In, slow. Out, slower. And now return with me to the scribe's quiet rhythm. Press, pause, press, pause. Imagine each breath is a wedge pressed into clay. Inhale, press, exhale, pause, inhale, press, exhale, pause. You are writing calm into your nervous system with each gentle cycle. Somewhere in Eridu, an apprentice scribe learns the same thing. The teacher doesn't rush the student. The teacher knows that skill arrives like sleep, gradually. Repetition becomes ease. Ease becomes quiet confidence. Quiet confidence becomes rest. If you need to hear it plainly tonight, hear it now. You don't have to be perfect to deserve peace. You don't have to finish the whole world to earn sleep. You can be incomplete and still be safe. In, safe. Out, safe. Now let Dillman's clean shore return as a distant light, not something you must reach, but something you can trust exists. Why, in the far distance of the mind, there is a place without sharpness, and even if you never go there in life as a location, you can go there as a feeling, lightness, cleanliness, ease. You can bring a little of that ease into the deep water now, the way a lantern's glow reaches into a dark pool. Not bright, just enough. If the day has left you feeling heavy, imagine the heaviness dissolving like a pinch of salt in water. It doesn't fight, it doesn't resist, it simply spreads out and becomes less concentrated. Out, spreading, out, easing. Here, no one rests alone. Somewhere, other listeners are lying down too, quietly breathing, letting their shoulders fall, allowing the night to be kind. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. If this story has brought you calm, you can leave a gentle comment for yourself when you're ready. It can be as small as "I went deep" or "I'm resting." Simple words like small tablets placed on a shelf. Don't forget to subscribe for more peaceful nighttime journeys. Some listeners like to imagine the deep water as a blanket made of silence. It covers the mind without pressing it. It warms without heat. It simply tells the body, you are done for today. If a thought tries to stand up again, the silence gently tucks it back in and lets the night continue. And now, because we are nearing the final third of our long night, we will slow even more. In the next part, we'll let time widen again, those dreamlike reigns of ancient kings, those enormous numbers that become horizons, so your worries can shrink and soften. Then we'll close, quietly, all with one last return to water. Namu's wide silence, the beginning that feels like a lullaby. For now, let the Abzu hold you. In, like water, rising gently. Out, like water lowering, calm and safe. Let the lamp in the temple courtyard dim in your imagination. Let the archive shelves fade into shadow. Let the deep water remain. And if you fall asleep here, let it happen naturally, as if you are simply becoming part of the story's quiet order. If you are still awake, you can let your attention rest in the simplest place, the slow, steady movement of your breathing. And if you are already half asleep, Let the words float past you like lantern light on water. You don't have to catch every sentence. The story knows how to walk on its own. Tonight, we return to an image that the old Sumerian world offered not as a puzzle to solve, but as a feeling to enter, time, stretched wide enough to soften the tightness in the chest. In Eridu, the temple quiets again. The lamp in the archive burns low. The clay tablets rest in their shelves like small sleeping stones. Outside, the canal continues its gentle motion, and the marsh reeds keep their quiet music. Somewhere a rooftop catches the night breeze, and the stars look patient, uncrowded by urgency. It is in this kind of night that the scribes copied their lists. Not only lists of barley and wool, but lists of kings and the long reigns that belonged to the world before the flood. Names set beside numbers so vast that they no longer feel like arithmetic. They become like horizons. They become like the sea, a reign of 28,000 years, a reign of 36,000 years. Actually, you don't need to remember which king held which number. Tonight, we are not studying, we are resting. The usefulness of these figures is not precision, it is scale. When time becomes that large, your mind loosens its grip on the smaller clocks. The nervous system hears a quiet message. There is room, there is space. You do not have to hurry through everything. If your day has been crowded with deadlines, let those ancient numbers open the air around you. Let them be like a wide desert at dusk where the sky stretches and the ground holds steady, and nothing asks you to move faster than you can. In, wide sky. Out, wide sky. Imagine the scribe again, working by lamplight. He shapes the tablet, smooths it, and begins to press. One wedge, a pause, another wedge, a pause. The signs build slowly, the way sleep builds slowly. As he writes, the list unfolds like a long river. The kings are not shouting. They are simply placed. A calm record, a calm structure, and then a simple turning. The flood comes, the flood passes, and the list continues. Not with excitement, but with steadiness. It is as if the text itself is reminding the reader that change is part of the rhythm. Water rises, water lowers, people return, the world finds its shape again. That is a comforting way to think about your own life. Not as a straight line you must perfect, but as a cycle you are allowed to move through. Busy seasons and quiet seasons, full days and soft nights, effort and rest. Rest belongs. If you want, you can repeat that phrase in a gentle whisper inside your mind, like a line pressed into clay. Rest belongs. In and out. Now let's carry that sense of widened time into a small, impersonal place. Think of a worry you've held this week. You don't have to name it sharply. Just feel its shape, the way you might feel a stone in a pocket. Notice how it tightens the body even a little. Now place that worry beside the horizon of the ancient numbers, 28,000 years, 36,000 years. The worry doesn't disappear, but it becomes smaller, it becomes less urgent, it becomes one pebble beside a vast shore. And your body, sensing that scale, can soften a fraction. This is not denial, this is perspective. The old stories offered it gently, not as a lecture, but as a soothing wideness. Above Eridu, the stars continue to turn. You can imagine the Milky Way as a pale river across the sky, and the canal below as a darker river across the land. River above, river below. And the world repeating itself in quiet patterns. And beneath the earth, the Abzu remains. Cool, sweet water, still and sustaining. Surface time can move quickly, deep time moves slowly. And in you, there is also surface and depth. Thoughts on top, stillness underneath. If you are ready, you can sink slightly toward that depth. In, deeper. Out, calmer. There is another gentle comfort in the old lists. They were copied by human hands. They were handled, set down, picked up again, carried from one room to another. The clay tablets traveled through time, not because they were dramatic, but because someone cared enough to preserve them. In that simple act, writing, drying, storing, there is a quiet lesson. Continuity is built from small, steady actions. The world is held by routine, and routine can be kind. Maybe tonight your routine is as small as listening to a story. Maybe it is turning your phone face down, dimming the room, letting your shoulders fall. Maybe it is one slow breath you give yourself as a gift. Whatever it is, it counts. Now imagine the king list as a soft landscape. The names are like distant hills. The numbers are like wide plains. The line about the flood is like a river crossing. And after it, the land continues, calm, open, steady. Let your mind walk across that landscape without trying to memorize it. Let it be the kind of walk you take in a dream, unhurried, guided by mood rather than destination. Step, pause, step, pause. If you feel yourself drifting, let the drifting deepen. Your body is wise. It knows what to do when the night is gentle, and as the landscape widens, something else becomes possible. Gratitude is not forced gratitude, not a bright performance, just a quiet appreciation for the simple fact that you have made it through the day and arrived here. You can be grateful for small things, the softness of a pillow, the safety of a room, the steady existence of breath. These are the kinds of treasures that never appear on lists of achievements, but they matter deeply to a tired heart. In ancient Eridu, a person might have been grateful for sweet water in a well, for a roof that held, for a canal that brought life to fields. In your world, the equivalents are different, but the feeling is the same: relief, steadiness, enough. And if you can feel enough for even a moment, sleep becomes easier. Now let's quietly return to the beginning of the beginning, beyond the kings and their long horizons, beyond the flood and the settling waters. When the oldest imagination holds a still sea, Namu, the primordial water before time. Not a loud start, but a calm origin, a surface so smooth it feels like a lullaby. Picture Namu now as a dark, still ocean, no shore, no wind, only quiet. It doesn't ask anything of you, it doesn't explain itself, it simply holds the possibility of everything, the way the night holds your sleeping body. If thoughts rise, let them be like small ripples that fade. The ocean remains in still water. Out, still water. And somewhere within that stillness, the world begins with a gentle opening. Sky lifting, earth's settling, space appearing like a breath. It is the same opening you are doing now in reverse, as you let your day close and your rest begin. The world inhaled to make room for life. Now you exhale to make room for sleep. In, room, out, room. On in the next part, we will let the story soften into its final reflections, time, memory, and the simple truth that the quietest things endure. We'll return once more to the surface of calm water, and we'll let the night carry you the rest of the way without effort. For now, rest in the widened horizon, rest in the deep water beneath your thoughts, rest in the patient stars above Eridu. And if you are still listening, you don't have to hold on much longer. You can let go slowly, like a hand releasing a warm stone into a quiet pool. Before we move on, let's linger with the idea of time as something you can feel, not something you must manage. Your body has its own clocks older than calendars. The slow pulse in your wrist, the quiet warmth in your chest, the way your breathing finds a gentler pace when you stop chasing it. And these are rhythms that don't demand success, they only ask for continuity. In the old cities, people learned time by watching water. A canal would rise slightly as the day warmed, then calm again in the evening. A field would drink, then green, then rest. Even the mud brick walls had their rhythm, warming under sun, cooling under stars. Time was not an enemy. Time was a companion. If you have ever felt that modern time behaves like a strict supervisor, let the Mesopotamian sense of time offer you a kinder language. Time can be like a river. It moves, but it also carries. It doesn't ask you to sprint along its bank. It simply invites you to float. And if you are floating tonight, if your mind is slipping towards sleep, know that you're doing exactly what you came here to do. Here, no one rests alone. Somewhere, other listeners are also lying down, letting their days dissolve, letting their shoulders fall, letting a quiet story be their last light. This shared softness is like a constellation. You don't have to see the other stars to know they exist. If you want to leave a gentle comment later, you can simply write where you're listening from, or one small word that feels true tonight: calm, safe, quiet, home. Not for attention, just as your own little colophon in the night. Now, one more breath, and let it be slow enough that it feels like a horizon. In, as if the sky is widening. Out, as if the earth is settling. And let the ancient numbers fade into a single feeling: spaciousness. If sleep is already near, let it arrive like a small boat reaching shore, quietly, safely, without ceremony, without effort for you tonight. And let the words become softer now, as if they are speaking from the other side of a thin curtain. Oh, you don't need to follow every sentence, and you can simply let the sound be there, like the last lamp in a room as you drift towards sleep. We are nearing the end of our gentle journey, and the ending will not be sudden. It will be like water smoothing itself after a long day of wind. So, for a moment, return to the beginning of tonight's story. A surface of ancient water, still before time. A hand pressing a reed into wet clay. A small wedge, a pause. Another wedge, a pause. Everything we have visited, Eridu's reed-lined canals, the temple of the Abzu, the archive of sleeping tablets, the long horizons of kings, the safe inside of the boat beneath steady rain, the clean shore of Dilmun, has been carried by the same thread. Slow, steady care. And that thread is what I want to leave with you. Because in modern life, so much noise tries to convince you that only loud things matter, only urgent things, only visible victories. But the ancient world, pressed into clay by patient hands, offers a different kind of truth. The quietest things endure: a breath, a small act of care, a routine that keeps you steady, a gentle story at night. These are the things that last, even when the day is heavy. If you are still awake, you can take a slow breath with me as though you are lowering a lantern into deep water. In, out. Now imagine again the scribe at the end of his day. He has spent hours pressing meaning into clay, not with tension, but with repetition. His hands are a little tired, but it is a good tired, the kind that comes from steady work, not frantic effort. Or the lamp beside him burns low. Outside, the canal water moves in the dark. He sets the tablet down. He does not stare at it, trying to perfect it. He does not argue with himself about whether he could have done better. He simply places it where it can dry, and he trusts time to do what time does. Firm the clay, preserve the marks, let the words sleep. There is a lesson in that trust. You can set the day down too. You can trust that tomorrow will arrive without you holding it in your jaw. You can trust that your body knows how to heal in sleep. In, out. Now return gently to the Abzu, the deep, sweet water beneath the earth. not as a dramatic underworld, but as a calm foundation, a quiet place where the surface world's noise cannot reach. If you have thoughts still swirling, imagine them as small ripples far above. Down here, the water is still. This is the place you can rest inside yourself. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to prove anything. It's part of your structure, like the deep water was part of Eridu's structure. In the Sumerian imagination, Enki dwells in that deep water. And in our gentle telling tonight, Enki's presence is not about power. It is about steadiness, about the kind of intelligence that can sleep, the kind of wisdom that doesn't panic. If you can borrow even a hint of that steadiness, let it settle in your chest in steadiness, out steadiness. Now think of the boat in the rain, not as a story of fear, but as a story of refuge. The outside world can be loud, the inside can remain warm, rain can fall and you can still be safe. This is not only myth, it is the truth of your bed right now. With the world outside your room might still have problems, but you are allowed, for a few hours, to be inside your blankets, inside your breath, inside this quiet corner of the night. If your mind tries to open the door to worry again, you can gently close it, not with force, just with softness. The way you might pull a blanket higher on a cool night. In, out. And now picture Dilmun one last time, not as a place you must reach, but as an idea of lightness, a clean shore, a gentle morning, a world without sharpness. Let it be far enough away that it doesn't become another task, but close enough that it becomes a comfort, a pale sky, a quiet pool, one slow drop falling from a leaf, a ripple, then stillness. If you can hold that image, let it be the last picture your mind carries into sleep. Now, there is a soft reflection I want to offer you, the kind that belongs at the edge of the night. The ancient people who pressed their stories into clay lived with uncertainty. The river could flood, the harvest could fail, a city could fall quiet. And yet they built canals, they built temples, they wrote lists, they told stories, they created patterns that could hold the mind when the world shifted. They were doing something deeply human, building safety from repetition. And you do the same. Every time you make tea and sit quietly, every time you wash your face before bed, every time you dim the lights, every time you choose a calm voice instead of another scroll. These small acts are your own clay tablets, your own way of pressing order into life. And that means you're not behind, you're not failing. You're doing what humans have always done, finding a way to be held. If tonight's story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. And if you feel like sharing, tell us. Where are you listening from tonight? Your presence adds warmth to this quiet corner of the night. Don't forget to subscribe for more peaceful nighttime journeys. Now let's close the way we began, with water, Namu, the primordial sea before time, still and wide. Imagine that surface now, darker than the night sky, smoother than glass. No edge, no demand, just quiet. And in that quiet, you can let your body stop searching. Your shoulders can be heavy, your hands can be still, your breath can be slow. In, like water rising gently. Out, like water lowering, calm and safe. If you are still awake, I want you to know something simple. You did enough today. Even if you didn't finish everything, even if you didn't say the perfect thing, even if you carried worry in your chest, you still made it here. You still found your way to softness. That matters. And if you are asleep already, then the story is simply floating on without you, the way the river floats on without anyone watching. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. So let the lantern dim now. Let the ancient water smooth itself. Let the clay tablets sleep on their shelves. Let Eridu's canals whisper and fade. Let Dilmun's clean shore remain as a gentle idea, and let your mind finally stop holding. In, out, and if you're still listening, you can let your eyes close more fully now. Let them close the way a door closes in a quiet house, slowly, without a click.
The night will carry you from here. The story has already done its work.
Our story pauses here. Every visual and word you've experienced was assisted by AI, yet guided and perfected by sincere human emotion. We hope this harmony of history and technology has crafted a beautiful dream for you tonight. Let go and drift deep into sleep. Good night.